He leaned in and whispered, "Try not to embarrass me. These people are way above your level." I didn't say a word. I just walked in beside him. But when the host rushed over, shook my hand, and said, "We've all been waiting to meet you," his face went pale so fast it was almost satisfying. For 3 weeks, my husband coached me on how not to embarrass him. "Make sure you get your hair done professionally," he said, like I was incapable of grooming myself. "Buy a new dress, something elegant but not too flashy," he instructed, like I didn't understand formal events. "Just smile and let me handle the conversations," he reminded me the night before, like I was too unsophisticated to speak to successful people. I listened to every condescending comment, nodded through every patronizing suggestion, let him believe I needed his guidance to navigate a world that was way above my level. The whole time I was working on the building where this exclusive dinner would be held, the historic estate I'd been restoring for over a year, the project that would win me a regional preservation award. The whole time the host of this dinner, the venture capital titan Christopher, was desperate to impress, was calling me for project updates and texting me photos of antique fixtures he'd found. But Christopher never asked about my work, never bothered to learn what I actually did, never connected the dots. So when we walked into that estate and everything he thought he knew about his wife collapsed in seconds, I can't say I felt bad about it. My name is Natalie, and this is how letting my husband underestimate me changed everything. I'm 34 years old and I've spent 15 years building a career my husband never bothered to understand. I'm a historic preservation architect. That's not the same as a regular architect, though most people don't know the difference. I don't design new office buildings or suburban homes. I save structures that everyone else has written off. Century-old factories that become luxury lofts. Abandoned theaters transformed into cultural centers, landmark properties, with foundation problems so severe that most architects won't touch them. That's my specialty. The impossible projects that require engineering expertise, historical knowledge, and stubborn determination. Last year, my firm brought in $3.2 million in revenue. We've been featured in Architectural Digest twice. I have a regional preservation award and national recognition from the Historic Preservation Foundation. 3 years ago, I gave a keynote speech at a conference where 200 architects took notes while I explained adaptive reuse strategies. But you'd never know any of that by looking at me on a Tuesday morning. I show up to construction sites in steel-toed boots and work pants. My hair is usually in a messy bun. I drive a practical Honda with mud on the floor mats and blueprints in the back seat. I don't wear designer clothes to job sites because they don't survive concrete dust. My hands have calluses and I keep my nails short because long nails are dangerous when you're climbing scaffolding. To most people, and definitely to my husband, I looked like someone still working their way up, not someone who'd already arrived. Christopher and I met 3 years ago at a wedding. He was a financial analyst at an investment firm, good salary, clear ambitions about making partner. When we started talking, I found him attractive in that polished way some men have. Tailored suit, expensive watch, easy confidence that comes from a life where doors have always opened. He asked about my work and seemed interested at first. We exchanged numbers, started dating. Within 6 months, he'd moved into my house, the place I'd bought as a foreclosure and renovated myself. Christopher loved that house. Loved telling people about it, though he never mentioned I'd done the work or bought it. Before we met, at first our relationship felt balanced. We both had demanding careers. We'd meet for dinner and talk about our days, or at least he'd talk about his days while I listened. Looking back, I realized how rarely the conversation went the other way. When I talked about projects, his attention would drift. If I got excited about solving a structural problem, he'd smile indulgently, like you might smile at a child showing you a drawing. He complimented my appearance regularly, especially when I dressed up for his events. But alongside compliments came suggestions. Maybe wear heels next time. Have you thought about a different hairstyle? That dress is nice, but something with a designer label might make a better impression. I told myself he was being helpful. The comments escalated gradually. You work too much, he'd say when I brought blueprints home. Can't your team handle this? Maybe it's time to upgrade your wardrobe. You can't show up to important events looking like you just left a construction site. I started noticing other things. How he'd introduce me at his events. This is my wife, Natalie. She's an architect, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, then quickly pivoting back to his work. How he'd check his phone when I talked about achievements. How he never came to my job sites, never attended my industry events, never asked to see the buildings I'd saved. The signs were all there. I just hadn't wanted to see them clearly, until it became impossible to ignore. 6 weeks ago, everything changed with a single invitation. Christopher came home, practically vibrating with excitement, holding a cream-colored envelope with embossed lettering. James Whitmore is hosting a private dinner, he said, staring at it like a lottery ticket. At the Whitmore estate, black tie, only 12 people and spouses invited. This is huge. James Whitmore controls half the commercial real estate development in this city. If I can make the right impression, he paused, looking at me with hope and concern. I was thinking, you could come with me as my date. The phrasing struck me immediately. Not will you come, or I'd love to have you there. But you could come, like he was extending an invitation to something I might not be qualified for. Of course, I said. When is it? 3 weeks from Saturday. 3 weeks gave him plenty of time to prepare. And apparently plenty of time to prepare me too. The coaching started the next day. Little comments woven into conversation, reminders that escalated into instructions. By the end of the first week, he'd created an entire strategy for how I should present myself. Make sure you schedule a hair appointment for that Friday, he said. Over breakfast. Professional styling. None of that messy bun thing. I looked up for my coffee. My hair is fine, Christopher. For work sites, sure, but this is different. These are extremely successful people. First impressions matter. A few days later came the dress conversation. I was thinking you should buy a new dress. Something elegant, but not too flashy, sophisticated. I have dresses, I know, but this is really important. Maybe something with a designer label. Something that looks expensive. The night before the dinner, he sat me down for what he called a game plan discussion. Listen, Nat, I need you to understand how significant this is. James Whitmore could open doors I've been trying to get through for years. The people at this dinner are way out of our league right now. So, tomorrow night, just follow my lead, okay? Smile. Be pleasant, but let me handle most Conversations. These people can be judgmental about careers and backgrounds. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I nodded, said okay. Let him think I needed his protection from a world I supposedly didn't understand. The whole time I was biting back the truth. The Whitmore estate he kept obsessing over. I'd been working on it for 14 months. James Whitmore had hired my firm to transform his family's Georgian mansion into a luxury event venue while maintaining its historical designation. It was one of the most complex projects of my career. Navigating preservation codes, upgrading systems without damaging original plaster work, designing modern amenities that didn't compromise architectural integrity. James and I had spent hours together, weekly planning sessions, site walks, discussing challenges, late night calls when permit issues threatened timelines. He respected my expertise, valued my input, trusted me. With his legacy property, he had my cell number. We texted regularly about fixtures and materials. That morning, he'd sent me a photo of bronze door handles from an estate sale, asking if they'd work for the carriage house. I'd mentioned the Whitmore project to Christopher exactly twice. Once when I landed the contract, told him over dinner I'd been hired for a major estate restoration. That's great, babe, he'd said, scrolling his phone. The second time was 6 months ago when I explained I'd be working late because we were in a critical construction phase. Okay, just don't forget we have that thing with my boss on the 15th, he'd replied. He never asked the client's name, never inquired about the scope, never connected the dots. Why would he? In his mind, I was just an architect doing architecture things. My work existed separately from his world of finance and important connections. So, I let him coach me. Let him believe I needed guidance. Let him think he was preparing me for something I wasn't sophisticated enough to handle. Because I knew something he didn't. In 2 hours, everything he thought he knew about his wife was going to crumble completely. Saturday evening arrived. With perfect weather, clear sky, comfortable temperature, golden light. That made everything feel surreal. Christopher spent the afternoon getting ready with focused intensity. New suit, fitting perfectly, shoes polished to a shine, hair professionally styled. Though he'd spent 40 minutes achieving it, I got ready more quietly. The salon had done well. My hair looked elegant, without being overdone. The black dress fit exactly right. The bracelet Christopher gave me caught the light. In the mirror, I saw someone who belonged at an exclusive dinner. Someone successful and confident. Someone my husband still thought needed protection from her own inadequacy. We drove in Christopher's car. He was too nervous to let me drive. Needed control of the wheel. His hands gripped tightly. He kept taking deep breaths, trying to calm anxiety. You look beautiful, he said as we got closer. Really beautiful. You're going to make a great impression. Thank you. Just remember everything we talked about. Smile, be warm, but let me lead conversations. These people are extremely influential. We only get one shot at this. We pulled up to the estate's entrance. The building looked stunning. The exterior lighting I'd selected highlighted the restored limestone facade. The bronze doors gleamed from months of restoration. The garden pathway had period-appropriate lanterns creating warm glow. Every detail had been specified and approved by me. Christopher parked, turned off the engine, sat collecting himself. Then He turned to me with that expression I'd come to recognize. Serious, paternal, condescending. Listen, Nat, I need you to understand how important tonight is. James Whitmore alone could change my entire career trajectory. He took my hand, squeezing firmly, not affectionately, but ensuring I was paying attention. So, please, just try not to embarrass me tonight. These people are way above your level. Way above mine too, honestly. But I'm trying to get us there. So just follow my lead. Smile. Be pleasant. Let me do the talking. Okay. I looked at him. Really looked. Saw a man who'd spent 3 weeks preparing for an evening he thought would define him. A man who'd coached his wife because he genuinely believed she wasn't capable of navigating this world alone. A man who had no idea who he'd married. Okay, I said quietly, and I meant it. I would let him walk into that building. Let him try to impress the host who had my number. Let him attempt to network with people who'd asked to meet me. We walked toward the entrance. The foyer took my breath away, though I'd seen it hundreds of times during construction. But seeing it transformed, lit perfectly, filled with elegantly dressed people, made those months of painstaking work feel suddenly real. The crown molding I'd spent weeks matching caught the chandelier's glow. The marble floors we'd uncovered gleamed under lighting. Every detail I'd agonized over. Every decision I defended. Every hour researching materials, it was all here. Completed. Perfect. Christopher didn't notice any of it. He was busy scanning faces, identifying important people, calculating approach. About a dozen people mingled near the staircase, holding cocktails, women in expensive dresses, men with casual confidence. Christopher straightened his shoulders, preparing. He took a breath like diving into deep water. Then James Whitmore spotted me from across the room. I saw the moment it happened. His face transformed with genuine warmth, the kind you can't fake. He excused himself and started walking toward us, toward me. Christopher saw him coming and shifted into performance mode. Adjusted posture, prepared handshake, positioned forward for the introduction. I watched him rehearse his opening lines silently, the greeting he'd practiced for 3 weeks. James walked right past him, didn't even glance, just came straight to me with both hands extended, taking mine warmly. Natalie, finally, his voice carried across the foyer. I've been telling everyone you'd be here tonight. We've all been waiting to meet you. The look on Christopher's face was something I'll remember forever. Pure confusion, like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. His greeting died on his lips. His hand hung ignored in air. Then recognition crept in. The way James said my name, the familiarity, the phrase, "We've all been waiting to meet you." Then absolute crushing horror as pieces connected in ways he hadn't expected. "Good to see you, James," I said, squeezing his hands. "See you. You're practically the reason we're having this dinner in this space." James gestured around with pride. "I wanted everyone to experience what you created. Every person here has asked for your contact information." He glanced at Christopher, who looked physically struck. "And you must be Christopher, Natalie's husband. She's mentioned you." Christopher made a sound that might have been words. His face had gone pale. "Natalie and I have been working together over a year now," James continued pleasantly, transforming. "This place was a nightmare before she came along. 3 other architects said it couldn't be done. code issues, structural problems, historical restrictions. But Natalie figured out how to honor the building's history while making it functional. Brilliant work. Christopher managed to say, architect, historic preservation, architect. I corrected gently. There's a difference. James laughed. Don't be modest. You saved this building on time and under budget, which is a miracle. He turned to Christopher with a calculating look. You must be incredibly proud. Not many can do what Natalie does. The next hour and a half were surreal in the best way. James introduced me to every influential person there. Michael Chin asked detailed questions about adaptive reuse strategies. Rebecca Hartford wanted to discuss her theater project. Thomas and Linda Patterson owned 3 historic properties and needed an architect. Every conversation was professional, substantive. The discussions I'd been having for 15 years. I talked about load-bearing walls and period-appropriate materials, explained working with historical commis, shared stories about discovering hidden features. This was my world. Had been since before Christopher and I met. The fact he'd never known it existed told me everything about our marriage. I spotted Christopher throughout the evening trying to insert himself into conversations, struggling to find footing without the James Whitmore connection, without me beside him. He was just another financial analyst at a party full of people who controlled actual capital. 90 minutes in, James pulled me to his study. Before we discuss audio systems, he said, I wanted to give you this. He handed me an envelope containing a $75,000 bonus for completing the project ahead of schedule and under budget. We spent 20 minutes discussing technical details, the problem-solving I genuinely loved. When we returned, I spotted Christopher alone at the bar, nursing his 3rd or 4th drink, watching with an expression I'd never seen. Anger, mixed with humiliation, mixed with fear. Our eyes met. For the first time in 3 years, he looked at me and saw someone he didn't recognize, someone he'd completely underestimated, someone who didn't need him at all. The realization was written plainly across his face. Despite everything, despite 3 weeks of condescension and 3 years of dismissal, I felt sadness wash over vindication. This was my husband, and he'd never actually known me. The car ride home was suffocatingly silent. Back at the house, Christopher exploded. You made me look like a complete fool tonight. How exactly did I do that? I asked calmly. You knew James Whitmore. You've been working with him over a year. You never mentioned it. I did mention it twice. You weren't interested. The argument continued, but Christopher thought the problem was just the dinner. One isolated incident. He didn't see the pattern, didn't understand the dinner, had simply revealed what had always been true. I'm not giving up, I said quietly. I'm accepting reality. I deserve someone who doesn't think I need to prove my worth to be worth loving. I packed a bag, called my friend Elena, and left. That night. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. Christopher tried fighting it. Filed a motion claiming my firm's value as marital property. Started dating a young architect named Rachel to gain access to my industry, but Rachel eventually came to me at an award ceremony. Told me Christopher had been using her. Provided a statement to my attorney. His claim was dismissed. The divorce was finalized 6 months after I walked out. My career expanded dramatically. The 4 projects from that dinner all moved forward. I hired 3 new architects, moved into a larger office, won 2 more awards. For the first time in years, I enjoyed success without filtering it through someone else's insecurity. 6 months after the divorce, I met Daniel at another dinner James hosted. He was a structural engineer specializing in historic buildings. Within 5 minutes, we were deep in conversation. He came to my job sites, attended my ceremonies, asked detailed questions. He treated me like a partner, not an accessory. A year later, I ran into Christopher at a coffee shop. We made awkward small talk. He apologized. I told him I hoped he found what he was looking for, and I meant it. Because the best revenge wasn't his failure or my success. It was building a life where I didn't need revenge at all. Where I could show up exactly as I was. And know that was more than enough. Where I had work I was proud of. A partner who saw me clearly, and the quiet knowledge that my worth had never depended on someone else recognizing it. That was worth more than any revenge could ever